Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell for new stories. David Miller's life was a quiet stream of daily routines. As a software developer working from home, he spent his days submerged in lines of code, occasionally surfacing to tend to his 10-year-old daughter, Emma. Their life in the sleepy suburb of Greenfield was marked by school runs, weekend movie nights, and the occasional adventure to the nearby lake. That night, as a storm brewed outside, casting eerie shadows through the rain-streaked windows, David was tinkering with a malfunctioning piece of software, the glow of his dual monitors the only light in the room. Emma had gone to bed early, the thunder a distant lullaby. A sudden knock at the door jolted David from his focus. He glanced at the clock, 11:37 p.m. With a frown, he pushed back from his desk, the rolling chair squeaking in protest. The knock came again, persistent and urgent. Peering through the living room window, David saw a figure shrouded in a hooded cloak, drenched by the pouring rain. Opening the door, he was met by the sight of a woman, her cloak clinging to her form. Her face was obscured by the hood, but her eyes shone with an intense, almost electric, blue glow that seemed to pierce the darkness. David Miller? Her voice was clear, with an odd melodic quality that seemed almost too perfect. Yes, David answered cautiously, can I help you? I am Arya, she said, stepping into the light of the hallway. And I have been protecting you and your daughter for years. David's initial instinct was to close the door on this apparent madwoman, but something in her demeanor held him back. She didn't seem threatening, just otherworldly. Protecting us? From what? David's voice was a mix of skepticism and curiosity. From dangers you are not aware of, threats beyond your understanding, Arya replied, lowering her hood. Her face was strikingly beautiful, almost impossibly so, with sharp, symmetrical features that seemed sculpted. Look, I don't know what this is about, but it's late and... May I come in? This is not a conversation for your doorstep. Her tone was insistent yet respectful. David hesitated but finally nodded, stepping aside. Arya entered, her presence filling the small hallway. Once inside, she turned to face him, her expression serious. I come from beyond your solar system, from a planet that your kind has not yet discovered. My people have been guardians of peace across galaxies, and we've been watching over Earth for centuries. David scoffed, his mind racing. Was this some sort of elaborate prank? But the night's strangeness, tinged with the unsettling reality of her piercing gaze, held him in place. Why us? Why me and Emma? Your lineage is unique, David. Your ancestors were part of an interstellar agreement formed hundreds of years ago, a pact that has protected Earth from intergalactic threats. Emma is destined to play a key role in the future of this agreement. She, like you, has inherited this legacy. David felt a chill run down his spine. Emma had always been an extraordinary child, quick to learn, always dreaming of distant stars and galaxies. He had just assumed she was gifted, never anything more. As hard as this is to accept, I need you to understand the gravity of what I am telling you. There are forces that wish to break this peace, to exploit Earth for their own gains. I have been your shield, but I cannot do this alone anymore. What do you expect me to do? David asked, his voice tinged with a mix of fear and disbelief. For now, just believe me. Soon, I will need your help to protect not just your family, but your world. A loud crash of thunder shook the house, as if punctuating her statement with the forces of nature itself. In that moment, David looked into Arya's glowing eyes and saw not madness, but a profound truth. I need to think about this, he stammered. Of course, Arya nodded. I will give you time. But know this, David, I am here because you and Emma are important, not just to me, but to the universe. With that, she pulled her cloak around her and moved toward the door. As she opened it, the storm seemed to pause, the rain momentarily ceasing. I will be in touch soon. Until then, keep Emma safe, and watch the skies. As Arya disappeared into the night, the rain resumed its torrential downpour. David closed the door slowly, leaning against it. The normalcy of his life had been shattered, replaced with a cosmic responsibility that was as terrifying as it was awe-inspiring. As he turned off the lights and headed to bed, his mind was a whirlwind of alien protectors, interstellar agreements, and a future he could barely comprehend. But deep down, a part of him believed in the truth of Arya's words, and in the unseen forces that shaped the destiny of his little family. The morning after Arya's visit, David found himself staring blankly at his computer screen. Code blurred before his eyes as his mind replayed the previous night's conversation. Aliens, guardians, cosmic threats, it felt like the plot of a science fiction novel, not something that could touch his and Emma's quiet life. Yet, the sincerity in Arya's voice and the intensity of her gaze haunted him. He couldn't dismiss her, not entirely. Over breakfast, Emma chatted about her dreams, vivid tales of distant planets and stars, which now made David pause. Was it a child's imagination, or something more? He watched her closely, wondering about the legacy Arya spoke of. "Daddy, why do you look sad?" Emma asked, her fork pausing mid-air. David smiled, masking his confusion. "Just a tough night at work, honey. Tell me more about your dream." As Emma described her dream in enthusiastic detail, David pondered Arya's claim about his ancestry. He decided to do some digging. After dropping Emma at school, he headed to the local library, a place he hadn't visited in years. He wasn't sure what he was looking for, but he started with genealogy records and old newspaper archives. Hours passed as David scrolled through digital archives, looking for anything that might hint at an extraordinary heritage. It was in a faded copy of a 19th-century newspaper that he found the first clue, an article about his great-great-grandfather, who had been a noted astronomer and a part of a secretive global summit of scientists. The article was vague, but it mentioned the astronomer's belief in extraterrestrial life, a controversial stance for his time. With a new thread to follow, David delved deeper, uncovering more about his ancestors' work and his connections with other notable scientists of his era. It seemed they had formed a covert group, dedicated to the study of astronomical phenomena and the possibility of alien life. The library clock chimed, pulling David from his research. He gathered his notes, promising himself he'd return. As he drove back to pick up Emma from school, his mind raced with the implications of his findings. Could Arya have been telling the truth? Later that evening, as David and Emma were finishing dinner, there was another knock at the door. David tensed, half expecting to see Arya or another otherworldly visitor. Instead, it was Mrs. Dalton, their elderly neighbor. "Oh, I just wanted to return this," she said, handing David a frisbee that Emma had accidentally thrown into her yard. "Thank you, Mrs. Dalton," David replied, his heart rate returning to normal. As the neighbor left, David caught a glimpse of a shadow moving swiftly across the street. It was too quick to see clearly, but it left him uneasy. He decided to call Arya, something he hadn't considered until now. How do you even contact an alien? That night, as he put Emma to bed, David noticed she was clutching a small, oddly shaped stone. "Where'd you get this?" he asked. "A lady gave it to me, in my dream," Emma replied sleepily. "She said it would keep me safe." David remembered Arya's parting words, "Keep Emma safe, and watch the skies." He pocketed the stone, a chill running down his spine. Perhaps it was time to fully embrace the reality Arya presented. He went to his home office, pulled out the stone, and held it in his hand. "Arya, if you're there, I need to talk," he said into the quiet room, feeling foolish. The stone warmed suddenly in his palm, and the air in front of him shimmered. Arya's form materialized, as if stepping out from behind a veil. "You called?" she asked. David, still gripping the stone, nodded. "I believe you. About everything. But I need to understand more." "Why me? Why Emma?" Arya smiled, a hint of relief in her expression. "I'm glad you're open to understanding. Your lineage is not just special, it's essential. The pact your ancestor made ensured Earth's protection, in exchange for future cooperation between our worlds. Emma is part of this legacy. But what does this mean for her? What dangers are we facing? David's concern for his daughter overrode his awe at Arya's sudden appearance. Your enemies aren't just intergalactic, they're also here, on Earth. They oppose the pact and seek to exploit Earth's resources for their own ends. They know of Emma's potential role, and they'll stop at nothing to change the course of our agreed peace. David absorbed her words, the gravity of the situation settling on his shoulders. What can I do to protect her? For now, keep this stone with you always, Arya instructed, nodding at the stone in David's hand. It's more than a simple rock, it's a piece of ancient technology, capable of alerting me if you're in danger. And you? How can you help us? David asked, feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders. I will be watching, always. But there's much you must learn. We must prepare you and Emma for what's coming. David agreed, determined to do whatever it took to protect his daughter and learn about their shared destiny. As Arya faded away, promising to return soon, David sat down, the stone next to him glowing softly in the dark room. His journey into the unknown had just begun, and he knew there was no turning back. The days following Arya's visit blended into a surreal mix of mundane tasks and clandestine meetings. David found himself juggling his responsibilities as a father and his burgeoning role in a cosmic narrative that was far bigger than he had ever imagined. Emma, unaware of the full extent of her heritage, adapted to the subtle changes in her father's demeanor with the resilience of a child who had always embraced the world with curiosity. Arya had instructed David to meet her at an inconspicuous location on the outskirts of Greenfield. As he drove there under the cloak of twilight, his mind was a whirlwind of anticipation and apprehension. He parked his car next to an old warehouse that seemed abandoned, the perfect setting for a scene out of a spy movie. Stepping out of the car, David scanned the area. It seemed deserted, save for a few scattered lights flickering in the distance. He walked towards the designated meeting spot, his steps echoing in the empty space. Suddenly, a gentle hand touched his shoulder, and he spun around to see Arya, materializing from the shadows. "Follow me," she whispered, leading him inside the warehouse. The interior was surprisingly modern, filled with technological equipment that looked out of place amidst the dusty shelves and rusted machinery. Arya guided him to a room where several individuals were waiting. "David, these are some of my allies," Arya introduced. Each person nodded in greeting, their faces a mixture of human and distinctly non-human features. One had iridescent skin that shimmered under the warehouse's fluorescent lights, while another had eyes that flickered with the gentle luminescence of distant stars. "This is Lyr, from the Cygnus constellation," Arya gestured towards the one with iridescent skin. "And this is Threx, whose ancestors have watched over Earth from the shadows of Jupiter's moons." David took a moment to let the reality sink in. These beings, each from a different corner of the galaxy, were united here on Earth, with the common goal of protecting it against threats both terrestrial and extraterrestrial. "Why me?" David finally asked, feeling out of depth. "You carry the legacy of the Pact, but more importantly, your ability to bridge our worlds with understanding and compassion is needed now more than ever," Lyr explained, her voice melodious yet commanding. The meeting continued with discussions of their common foes, a group known as the Dracontides, who opposed the ancient agreements and sought to disrupt the balance of power within the universe. They had infiltrated various levels of society on Earth, blending in almost perfectly with the human population. "They know of Emma's potential," Threx added, his tone grave. "We must be vigilant. They will not hesitate to use whatever means necessary to achieve their goals." David absorbed every detail, every strategy discussed. It was overwhelming, but a resolve was building within him. He was no longer just a software developer, he was a key figure in an interstellar alliance. As the meeting drew to a close, Arya took David aside. "I know this is a lot to take in, but you are not alone. We are here to support you, and we have resources you can't even imagine. Before he could respond, a sudden alert resonated through the room. Screens flickered to life, displaying a map with a blinking light. "They've made a move," one of the team members announced, urgency lacing his voice. "What's happening?" David asked, rushing over. "It's a Drakentide agent, attempting to breach a secure facility we use to monitor cosmic activities. We believe they're trying to gather information, possibly even sabotage our efforts here," Arya explained, her eyes narrowing. "Do we have a plan?" David's voice was steady, his initial shock now replaced by a proactive stance. "We intercept," Arya replied. "Threx, LYR, you're with me." "David, it's important you stay here. This is not yet your fight." David started to protest, but Arya raised a hand. "You need to understand the scope of what we face before you can engage. Your time will come, but for now, observe and learn." Reluctantly, David watched as Arya, Threx, and LYR prepared to leave. The remaining team members turned to their stations, coordinating movements and relaying information. David was left to watch, feeling a mixture of frustration and awe. As the team departed, one of the human-looking allies approached David. "Don't feel left out," he said, smiling warmly. "Every moment here is a step towards understanding the bigger picture. You're part of something greater now, and every role is crucial." David nodded, taking comfort in those words. He turned his attention to the screens, trying to absorb every piece of information, every strategy. He knew that soon, he would be out there with them, protecting not just his daughter, but an entire planet. The night grew deeper, and as David monitored the team's progress, he felt a new sense of purpose. This was just the beginning, and he was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. David watched anxiously as the team's operation unfolded on the screens. Each movement was meticulously coordinated, with Arya, Threx, and LYR moving stealthily towards their target. David's heart raced, a mix of concern for their safety and a burning desire to be out there with them. Hours later, the team returned successful, having intercepted the Drakentide agent and secured the compromised facility. Arya briefed David on their return, her face grim but relieved. "It was a close call, but we've managed to prevent them from accessing crucial data about Earth's defenses." David nodded, absorbing the weight of every encounter. "When will I be ready to join you?" he asked, eager but anxious. "Soon, David. Your training will begin tomorrow. There's much you need to learn about your abilities and the technology we use," Arya replied, her gaze assessing him thoughtfully. The following weeks were a blur of intense training. David was introduced to advanced alien technology that defied earthly physics, and he began to understand the deeper layers of his own ancestry. His great-great-grandfather had not only believed in extraterrestrial life but had been part of a legacy that now coursed through David's veins. As his training progressed, Arya took David to a hidden location far from the city, a place shrouded in secrecy. It was an underground facility, filled with artifacts and historical records of alien-human interactions. "This is where you will understand the full extent of your heritage," Arya explained as they walked through the vast archive. The walls were lined with holograms and ancient manuscripts, some of which shimmered with a light that seemed to pulse with life. Arya led him to a specific section, where a holographic globe hovered, depicting Earth surrounded by various alien territories. "Your ancestor was a key figure in the signing of the Pact of the Stars," Arya said, activating the globe. The image zoomed in on a historical scene, showing a group of humans and aliens gathered around a large table, signing a monumental document. David watched, spellbound as the scene played out, the hologram providing a window to the past. He helped establish the guidelines for peaceful coexistence and the protection of Earth against external threats, Arya continued. "Why is this not public knowledge?" David asked, overwhelmed by the revelation. "Because it was deemed too disruptive for the time. Even now, humanity is not fully ready to understand or accept the reality of our existence," Arya replied. They moved to another section, where artifacts from various galaxies were displayed. Each piece had a story, a piece of the cosmic puzzle that had shaped the universe's history. Arya handed him a small, metallic object that seemed to hum with energy. This was given to your ancestor as a token of the pact. It's not just a symbol, it's a tool. It enhances your innate abilities, linked to your lineage, she explained. David held the object, feeling a surge of power course through him. It was as if the very essence of his being had awakened to a deeper connection with the cosmos. With this, you are more than just a guardian, you are a bridge between worlds, Arya said, her voice filled with a mixture of pride and solemnity. As they continued exploring the archives, David learned about the various alien species that had interacted with Earth, each with its own culture and technology. The knowledge was vast, almost overwhelming, but David absorbed as much as he could, determined to fulfill his role in this interstellar legacy. They spent hours in the archive, and by the time they emerged, it was night. The stars twinkled above, each one a reminder of the countless lives and stories unfolding across the galaxy. Driving back to Greenfield, David was quiet, lost in thought about everything he had learned. Arya noticed his contemplation and offered some words of encouragement. It's a lot to take in, but you're not alone. We are with you, David. Your family's legacy is important, but it's your own actions that will define the future. David nodded, feeling a newfound resolve. He was no longer just a bystander in his own life, he was a player on a cosmic stage, with a role that had implications far beyond anything he had ever imagined. Returning home, he tucked Emma into bed, her sleepy eyes barely opening as she murmured a good night. Looking at her, David felt a surge of protectiveness. She was the next in line, a future guardian who would one day learn her own role in this grand cosmic play. As he stepped outside, gazing up at the starlit sky, David felt a connection to the universe that was both humbling and exhilarating. He was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead, armed with the knowledge of his ancestors and the technology of his alien allies. The night was quiet, but the universe was alive with possibilities, and David Miller was at its heart, a guardian not just of Earth, but of the future itself. In the weeks that followed his visit to the underground archive, David found himself deeply embedded in the network of Earth's alien guardians. Each day brought new lessons and deeper insights into the technologies and strategies used to maintain the delicate balance of cosmic peace. However, amidst this whirlwind of activities, the sense of urgency that Arya and the others felt was palpable. The Dracontides were becoming bolder, and it was only a matter of time before they struck again. One afternoon, while David was reviewing tactical data with Arya and the team, an alert sounded through the command center. The screens flickered to life, displaying a map marked with a rapidly blinking light. They've located one of the artifacts from the Treaty of Orion, one of the operators announced, his voice tense. Arya turned to David, her expression grave. This artifact is a cornerstone of the Peace Pact. If the Dracontides get their hands on it, they could unravel the agreements that have protected Earth for centuries. David understood the gravity of the situation. The artifact, a crystalline device capable of amplifying energy fields, was last seen in a temple hidden deep in the jungles of Southeast Asia. We need to get there first, he said, determination setting his jaw. The team mobilized quickly, with Arya and David leading a small group equipped with the latest alien technology. They traveled under the cover of night, their aircraft barely a whisper against the backdrop of the starry sky. Landing a safe distance from the temple, the team trekked through the dense jungle. The air was thick with humidity, and the sounds of nocturnal creatures filled the silence between them. David felt every step resonate with the weight of his responsibility. This was no longer training, it was real, and the stakes were higher than ever. As they approached the temple, the environment grew unnaturally quiet. Arya signaled for the team to stop, her eyes scanning the shadows. "We're not alone," she whispered. Through the advanced thermal imaging devices they carried, they could see shapes moving stealthily around the perimeter of the temple. "It's an ambush," Threx, who had joined them for the mission, murmured. He was experienced in combat, his body language tense and ready for action. Arya looked at David, her gaze conveying a mix of warning and trust. Remember your training. Focus on the mission. Protect the artifact at all costs. The confrontation was swift and intense. The Dracontides emerged from the shadows, their forms blurred by cloaking technology. But David and his team were prepared. They used non-lethal weapons, designed to incapacitate rather than kill, aiming to uphold the Guardian's principles of preserving life. David found himself face to face with a Dracontide agent, the enemy's features harsh and twisted by anger. Recalling the maneuvers he had practiced, David managed to disarm the agent, using a combination of human martial arts and alien technology. As the agent fell, stunned, David couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy. Behind the hostile actions were beings who believed they were fighting for their own survival. With the immediate threat neutralized, the team advanced into the temple. The artifact was located in an ancient chamber, its walls covered in inscriptions that told stories of cosmic alliances and ancient wars. The air was heavy with the power of unspoken history. David stepped forward, his hand extended towards the artifact. As his fingers touched the crystalline surface, a surge of energy coursed through him, a connection that felt both alien and familiar. The artifact recognized him, his lineage clear to its ancient mechanisms. With the artifact secured, the team made their way back to the extraction point. The jungle seemed less threatening now, as if the very earth acknowledged their success. Back at the command center, Arya commended the team on their efficiency and bravery. "This is a significant victory," she said, her voice echoing in the quiet of the aftermath. "But the battle is far from over." David knew she was right. The Dracontides would regroup and come after them again. But for now, they had won a crucial battle in the ongoing war for peace. As the team dispersed, David remained behind, looking at the artifact now safely housed in a containment unit. Its glow was soft, almost soothing, a stark contrast to the power it held within. He thought of Emma, sleeping peacefully at home, unaware of the role she would one day play in this vast cosmic play. Protecting her, and the Earth, was his priority now. He was no longer just a participant in the events unfolding around him, he was a leader, a guardian, a bridge between worlds. As he left the command center, the first light of dawn was breaking over the horizon. A new day was beginning, and with it, new challenges. But David felt ready. With each step he took, he carried the legacy of his ancestors and the hope of future generations. The race against time continued, but for now, he had proven himself capable of standing up to the challenge. In the wake of their victory at the temple, David and the team returned to their headquarters with the artifact safely in their possession. The atmosphere among the group was one of cautious optimism. They had secured a significant victory, but the threat of the Dracontides loomed larger than ever. The team gathered in the main conference room, where Arya began outlining the next steps. "We must unlock the artifact's potential," she explained, her voice steady but charged with an undercurrent of urgency. "Its power can fortify Earth's defenses and perhaps even bring the Dracontides to the negotiation table, if wielded correctly." David, still feeling the residual energy from his contact with the artifact, nodded. He understood the importance of their next move. "How do we activate it?" he asked, eager to learn more about the role he was to play. Arya introduced a new character into the narrative, Dr. Elara Miles, an expert in extraterrestrial technologies who had been working with the Guardians for years. Elara has studied similar artifacts and understands how to harmonize their energies with human capabilities, Arya said as she motioned towards a woman who had just entered the room. Elara, with her keen eyes and an air of quiet confidence, approached David. "The artifact responds to specific genetic markers that are, remarkably, present in your DNA," she explained. "It seems it was designed to be activated by someone of your lineage." The implications of this revelation were profound. Not only was David connected to this ancient network of peace, but he was also physically key to its continuation. Under Ilara's guidance, David began a series of rigorous trainings that merged his physical capabilities with his innate genetic traits, enhancing his interaction with the artifact. Meanwhile, the Dracontides were not idle. News of the artifact's recovery had reached their ears, and they were preparing a counterstrike. The Guardians received intelligence about an impending attack, far more severe than any before. It was to be a direct assault on the headquarters, where they believed the artifact was still contained. The team bolstered their defenses, fortifying the perimeter and setting up strategic countermeasures. David felt the weight of leadership heavier than ever as he coordinated the defense efforts alongside Arya and Threx. As the sun set, casting long shadows over the landscape, the first sign of the attack appeared on the horizon. A fleet of Dracontide ships descended rapidly, their intentions clear. David stood firm, the artifact now pulsing with a light that mirrored his own determination. The battle that ensued was fierce. Energy beams crisscrossed the sky as the Guardians used advanced alien technology to counter the invaders. David, connected to the artifact, directed its power to shield their headquarters, creating a protective barrier that repelled the initial waves of the attack. But the Dracontides were relentless. As the battle raged, it became clear that they had one goal: to capture the artifact and use it for their own ends. A particularly large Dracontide ship broke through the perimeter, deploying troops directly into the heart of the Guardians' defenses. David, amid the chaos, remained focused. He channeled the artifact's energy, using it to enhance his and his allies' combat abilities. The ground around the headquarters shook as the power of the artifact was fully unleashed, turning the tide of the battle. Ilara and Arya fought alongside David, their combined efforts creating a formidable front. Threx and other alien Guardians engaged the enemy, each move coordinated through a network that the Dracontides couldn't penetrate. The climax of the battle came when David confronted the Dracontide leader, a towering figure clad in armor that seemed to absorb light. Using the artifact's power, David managed to disable the leader's armor, revealing a vulnerable creature beneath. It was a critical moment, one that highlighted the difference between the two sides, where the Dracontide sought domination, the Guardians sought understanding and peace. The defeated leader, recognizing the futility of the attack, signaled for retreat. The Dracontide ships, battered and diminished, withdrew into the night sky, leaving behind a battered but victorious team of Guardians. In the aftermath of the battle, David and the team assessed the damage. It was considerable, but the spirit of the team was unbroken. More importantly, the artifact had proven to be a powerful ally, and David's ability to wield it had saved countless lives. Arya approached David as the team began repairs. "You did well," she said, her voice filled with respect. "Today, you didn't just protect a place, you protected a future." David looked around at the faces of his team, human and alien alike, each sharing a sense of accomplished duty. "What happens now?" he asked, aware that the conflict was far from over. "Now, we build," Arya replied. "We strengthen our defenses, we expand our alliances, and we prepare. The Dracontides will think twice before attacking, but they will be back. And we will be ready." As they spoke, the artifact continued to glow softly in David's hand, a symbol of the legacy he had embraced and the responsibilities he now carried. The battle had ended, but the war for peace was just beginning, and David Miller was at the forefront, a guardian not just for Earth, but for the hope of harmony in the cosmos. In the days following the battle, the Guardians' headquarters became a hub of activity. David found himself at the center of planning sessions and debriefings, his role as a leader solidified by his recent successes. But amidst the forward momentum, there was a need to reflect and to understand the deeper implications of their encounters with the Dracontides. Arya and David took a moment to walk through the recovered areas of the headquarters, observing the repair work and speaking with team members about their experiences. It was during one of these walks that Arya decided it was time to share more about the origins of the Guardians and the depths of their connection to Earth. "David, there's something I need to show you," Arya said, leading him to a secluded part of the archive that had been shielded from the recent attack. Inside, she activated a device that projected images of Earth and other planets, all interconnected by lines of light. These connections you see here represent the alliances forged by the Treaty of Orion, your ancestors' work, Arya explained. Each line is a commitment to peace and mutual protection. What we've been fighting for isn't just about defending Earth, but maintaining a balance that affects countless worlds. David absorbed the scale of his responsibilities, the visual representation bringing a new level of understanding. And the Dracontides, he asked. They were once part of this, Arya pointed to a line that had turned from light blue to dark. But they chose a path of conquest, believing it would lead to greater security for their people. Your success in the recent battle has, however, opened a possibility for dialogue. The prospect of negotiating with their recent enemies was daunting, but David recognized the necessity of diplomacy. What role am I to play in this? He inquired, ready to take on whatever was needed. Your lineage and your actions have positioned you as a mediator, a beacon of what the treaty can achieve. It's time we prepared you for this role formally, Arya stated, her tone imbued with both pride and seriousness. Over the next few weeks, David underwent training that extended beyond physical and tactical preparations. He learned the languages and customs of various alien species, and delved deeper into the histories that shaped the galaxy. It was a period of profound growth and understanding. During this time, Emma was brought into the fold. With the truth of her heritage revealed, she embraced her role with a wisdom beyond her years, inspired by the stories of her father and ancestors. Arya took a special interest in mentoring Emma, seeing in her the future of Earth's guardianship. As preparations were laid for a summit with the Dracontides and other key stakeholders, the Guardians' headquarters buzzed with a cautious optimism. However, as the date approached, Arya received news that called her back to her home planet. David, my time here is nearing its end, Arya disclosed one evening as they looked out over a newly constructed observation deck. There are matters that require my attention, and leaders that must be reassured of Earth's progress. David felt a twinge of sadness, having grown to see Arya not just as a mentor but as a friend. When will you return? He asked, hoping it was a departure and not a farewell. I am not sure, Arya admitted. But I leave knowing that you and Emma are fully capable of leading in my absence. Remember, the networks we've built here are strong, and you're never truly alone. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a messenger, announcing the delegation from the Dracontides was entering the solar system. It was a moment both had been preparing for, yet it carried a weight that was palpable. The summit was held at the headquarters, with David leading the discussions. His voice steady, his arguments persuasive, he brokered a tentative peace, setting the groundwork for future negotiations. The Dracontides, impressed by David's leadership and the Guardians' resilience, agreed to a ceasefire, a first step towards rebuilding trust. As the delegates left, David stood beside Emma, who had observed the proceedings with keen interest. You did great, Dad, she said, squeezing his hand. I had a good teacher, David replied, his gaze finding Arya in the crowd. She smiled back, a silent acknowledgement of his growth. The next morning, as the first light of dawn crept across the sky, Arya prepared to leave. The Guardians gathered to see her off, each member expressing their gratitude and respect. David and Emma were there too, their hearts heavy but their spirits buoyed by the hope Arya had helped instill. Keep looking up, Arya said to them both, her usual parting words now carrying a deeper resonance. With a final embrace, Arya boarded her craft, the sleek design reflecting the early morning light. As the ship lifted off, soaring into the sky, David felt a surge of determination. Arya had left them with a fortified planet, a legacy of peace, and a path forward. David and Emma returned to the observation deck, watching as Arya's ship became a speck against the vast cosmos. What now? Emma asked, looking up at her father. Now, we build on what she left us, David answered, his eyes on the horizon. We continue to protect, to negotiate, and to prepare. The universe is vast, and our adventures are just beginning. As they turned back towards the headquarters, the first messages of support from the other planetary delegates began to arrive, each one a testament to the new era of peace that was dawning. With Aria's guidance and their own unyielding resolve, David and Emma were ready to lead Earth into this new chapter. After Aria's departure, David felt the weight of his new responsibilities more acutely than ever. However, he was not alone. He had Emma by his side and a committed team of guardians both from Earth and across the stars. The success of the summit had sparked a new sense of unity among the various species, and there was a palpable optimism about the future. David spent the following weeks busily engaged in the implementation of the ceasefire agreements and the establishment of new communication protocols between Earth and the other signatory planets. It was a groundbreaking time, with old fears giving way to new partnerships. The Guardians' headquarters was transformed into an interstellar diplomatic hub. David oversaw the construction of new facilities, including a conference center designed for negotiations and cultural exchanges. Emma was often at his side, her keen interest in alien cultures making her a favorite among their extraterrestrial allies. Meanwhile, the Dracontides, now tentative allies, participated in joint missions to stabilize regions of space affected by their previous conflicts. These missions not only helped to build trust but also allowed David to showcase the effectiveness of peaceful cooperation over conflict. One afternoon, as David and Emma walked through the newly established Interstellar Botanical Garden, a symbol of growing interspecies collaboration, they discussed the upcoming Universal Council meeting. It would be the first of its kind, with representatives from all treaty planets, including Earth. "Dad, do you ever think about what Grandpa would say if he saw all this?" Emma asked, looking around at the exotic plants, each representing a guardian planet. "He'd probably say we're living in a science fiction novel," David replied with a smile. "But I think he'd be proud. We've turned his legacy into a beacon of hope." Emma nodded, her expression thoughtful. "Arya would be proud too." As they talked, their conversation turned to the future and the role Emma would eventually play. David knew that soon, she would take her place not just as a guardian but as a leader. Her natural ability to understand and empathize with different species made her an ideal candidate for the role of Earth's ambassador. David's thoughts were interrupted by an urgent communication from Threx, who was now acting as the head of security. "David, you'll want to see this," the message read, prompting both him and Emma to hasten to the command center. Upon their arrival, Threx presented them with a live feed from one of their outer surveillance posts. The sensors had detected an anomaly near the edge of the solar system. It was not a ship or a natural phenomenon but something entirely unexplained. "We're not sure what it is, but it's moving toward Earth," Threx explained, his voice tense. David assessed the data, his mind racing through the possibilities. "Prepare a recon team. We need to understand what we're dealing with before it enters Earth's orbit." As preparations for the mission began, David felt the old thrill of the unknown. This was what it meant to be a guardian, to face the unknown with courage and a will to protect. The recon mission departed within hours, with David and Emma monitoring from the command center. As the team approached the anomaly, the tension in the room mounted. The live feed showed a swirling mass of energy, its core pulsing with light. Suddenly, the energy shifted, coalescing into a clear form, a ship, unlike any they had seen before. It was sleek and luminous, its design suggesting advanced technology far beyond their current understanding. "Hail them," David instructed, his curiosity piqued. The first contact was tense, the universal translator working overtime to decipher the new language. The response, when it came, was in clear, albeit accented, Galactic standard. "Greetings, Guardians of Earth. We are explorers from the Andromeda Galaxy. We seek dialogue with those who value peace and knowledge." A murmur went through the command center, a mix of relief and excitement. Another piece of the universe was reaching out, drawn by the reputation Earth had built as a planet of peace. In the weeks that followed, David played a crucial role in establishing formal relations with the Andromedan explorers. Their arrival opened new doors for technological and cultural exchanges, enhancing Earth's position within the universal community. During the official welcome ceremony, held at the new conference center, David gave a speech. He talked about the journey Earth had undertaken, from isolation to becoming a pivotal member of the interstellar community. As we stand here today, we are not just representatives of Earth, but of hope, of a future where peace prevails across galaxies. David addressed the gathered crowd, which included humans and aliens alike. Emma stood beside him, her pride in her father and her planet evident in her smile. After the ceremony, she turned to David. "You know, I think we're ready for whatever comes next." David looked at his daughter, seeing not just the child he had raised but the future leader she was destined to become. "We are," he agreed. "Together, there's nothing we can't face." As they walked back through the botanical garden, the sun setting behind the alien flora, David felt a deep contentment. The path ahead would undoubtedly hold challenges, but Earth was no longer navigating the stars alone. They were part of a vibrant, interconnected cosmos, with Emma ready to lead the next chapter of their incredible journey. And somewhere in the vastness of space, he knew Arya was watching, her legacy now truly a part of Earth's enduring story of unity and exploration. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. For more exciting HFY stories. Your support means the world to us. And make sure to tap the bell icon, so you never miss an update. Stay tuned for our next adventure, and until then, keep exploring the stars. See you in the next video.